Hey everyone, my name is Lauren, and today I'm going to be providing some tips for healthcare professionals and law enforcement who are working with and serving people with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. So I think the biggest thing that I want to emphasize today is that people with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder are people, and it's important to treat them as such. A term that's commonly used when talking about people with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder is schizophrenic. And this is a really dehumanizing term, and it kind of conflates the person with the illness, when really the person is not defined by their illness. We wouldn't dream of calling someone with cancer cancerous or someone with fibromyalgia fibromyalgic, so why do we do it with mental illnesses? So some better language to use instead might be individual living with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, or person living with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. It puts the person first. Another really important tip is that it's really important to advocate for what the individual can do and to focus on strengths rather than focusing on the negatives or the limitations due to the psychosis or the illness. So an example from my own personal story about when a doctor was focusing on the negatives rather than my strengths was when a doctor told me that I should be kept in a hospital for the rest of my life. This compared to my current psychiatrist who focuses on my strengths around school, around taking care of myself, etc. Another thing that I feel is a really important tip is to remove the term medication noncompliance. It is generally fairly rare that someone with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder just decides to stop taking their medication because they feel like it. It usually has to do with some nasty side effects that are a common result of antipsychotic medications that people with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder are typically on. Oftentimes, people with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder are taking multiple medications at different times of the day, and it can be kind of hard to keep it all straight. I know myself, I am also pretty forgetful, and so sometimes it's just a matter of forgetting that I haven't taken my medication. So the term medication noncompliance kind of puts the blame or the onus of not taking the medication on the individual and is really coming from a place of blame rather than a place of support. Another really important tip is to include the individual in their own care plan. So my current therapist really works to include me in my own care plan and kind of checks in regularly with me to make sure that what we're doing is what I want and what I need, and making sure that we are both on the same page in that respect. She does a really good job of ensuring that it's a more collaborative process between her, my doctors, and me. Some tips for when an individual with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder is in the midst of psychosis include to remove any distractions or reduce any distractions in the room. So this could include turning off the TV if it's on or the radio if it's on, reducing the amount of people in the room and around the individual, or things like that. It's a good idea to have only one person speaking at a time too, and you may need to repeat yourself sometimes as well if needed. It's really important to speak to the behavior or the emotions that the person is exhibiting rather than their delusions or hallucinations. What they're experiencing is really real, and so their behaviors and emotions as a result are very real too, and it's important to kind of address those rather than the hallucinations and delusions. So what I mean by this is to not persuade someone or try to convince them that what they're experiencing isn't real. So if they look up and think that the sky is purple, then to them the sky is purple. And there's no sense in trying to persuade them otherwise. Instead, focus on the emotions that they're feeling because of that perception. So if they are seeing that the sky is purple and they're feeling scared because of that, then talk to them about how they're feeling scared and acknowledge that emotion and validate that emotion. It's then useful to try to work to move beyond whatever they're experiencing. So, okay, I see that and I understand that you are scared about the sky being purple, but can we continue going on with our day with the purple sky still? So a good example of what to do and what not to do when someone is in psychosis is one of my own personal examples of when I was experiencing an episode of psychosis and I was being taken to the hospital by two policemen who exhibited very different strategies in terms of dealing with me. So the first policeman that I was dealing with of the pair took a much more abrupt approach with me and was a little bit aggressive with me and very impatient and frankly just seemed a little bit uninformed about my situation. This resulted in me responding in a not very positive manner, and I got really agitated with him. In stark contrast, his partner, the other policeman who was bringing me to the hospital, took a much more empathic approach and was far more understanding and gentle and compassionate with me, which went a long ways. He kind of took the time to sit down and talk with me about how I was feeling and did all those things like reduce distractions, talk to me about my emotions rather than the delusions and hallucinations that I was experiencing. And he did just a really good job of calming me down and just diffusing the situation through those techniques. So the last and probably most important tip that I have is to just approach people with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder with so much empathy. It's really important to have an understanding of what they're going through. So that might mean doing your research more about what living with this illness is like, talking to people who are living with it, who can articulate what exactly it's like, watching videos like some of the videos that I've made. Empathy can go a really long way in terms of establishing connection with other humans. And so this obviously includes working with people with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder too. An example of a time where a policeman actually, again, was really empathic with me and did a really good job of exemplifying this sense of empathy was, again, when I was being taken to the hospital and I was very scared and confused about what was going on. He really took the time to understand how I was feeling, and he provided his own actually experience with feelings of depression and going through some harder times, which really helped me to just kind of get some perspective on the situation. And it helped me to it helped to kind of normalize what I was going through as well, which went a really long way. So of course, as a healthcare professional or a law enforcement professional, it's not always going to be appropriate to share this much of your own personal story, but the concept of vulnerability is a really powerful one, and it can be very effective in terms of working with people with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. So the biggest tip or takeaway that I really want you to take away from this video is just that people living with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder are people. We are not defined by our illness. It can seem like the illness takes up a large portion of our lives sometimes, but it's just a health condition that we're living with. It does not define us. So just take the time to be really patient, and compassion and empathy can go a really long way in terms of dealing with anyone really, but especially someone living with a mental illness such as schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that some of these tips were helpful in terms of working with and serving people with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder in your work environment. If you're interested in learning more about schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, make sure to check out some of the other videos that I made on the topic, and make sure to subscribe for future videos. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and thanks so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.